Raising Your Inner Voice with Jay Foss.
All right, party people, thanks so much for joining me this evening. It's time for a little community check-in. That means that you are welcome to give us a call, 1-800-370-1049. Let us know how you are doing in this here life. When I was an education minor for a little while back in my college days, I remember the woman who was... she was helping me with student teaching, and she had expressed to me that teaching itself is not the hard part of being an educator. It's gauging and assessing the disruptions, right, that are individually present in each kid, as far as learning styles, personalities, all the way to home life situations. What each child is bringing with them as they walk into the door of the school is what you need to address, as well as the obstacle of actually educating. Right? So balancing those two things out. The challenge with teaching is creating that space of transition to go from home life or even issues on the playground to an atmosphere of learning and fostering a playful, challenging education. Well, these Sunday evenings for me function as that same liminal space. It's no longer the weekend, right? It's Sunday evening, but it's not quite the week yet either. So I have a question, and that is, how are you dealing? Anything from with COVID itself to just any fears or concerns or joy that is being sparked within you? Feel free to give me a call, add to the conversation, 1-800-370-1049. I do happen to have a few guests here in the studio and online with me. Up first, I'm so honored to be checking in with many different fields. Miss Lisa Ann Santin, she's the owner of Last Wardrobe. She is a woman's wardrobe style coach and consultant, as well as podcaster with her own show, Wardrobe Muse. Thanks for being on the show today, Lisa. How is your business? How is it needed to adapt, and how are you currently doing?
Hey, Jay. Great to be here.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great, which in that sentence is embedded some guilt, because I know people are not doing great. And I've had a few life circumstances, which I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on the show, but that have been far worse for me to navigate. And so I had to go back to that tool chest, to those times that were super difficult in the last 10 years, and use some of that skill to help me navigate this.
What are some of the tools that you went to that might help another listener right now?
Community. So in an instance I can think of where we were caring for someone with a dis-ease that was very rare, it was all about community. Because
which is kind of hard right now.
Well, that was in the past, but I'm sure there are people navigating that now as well. So just finding those support groups or those community-based groups where you can kind of have somebody holding that space for you is really, really important. Okay,
awesome. Mm-hmm. And how are you dealing with business right now?
So I've moved my services 100% virtual. Zoom is kind of the de facto platform, but we can use whatever the client would like.
Yep.
And it's going remarkably well. I had switched to a sliding scale for billing, like this service you can pay from this amount to this amount. And I really expected people to pay the lower amount.
Okay.
And I've been so blessed and pleasantly surprised that everyone's paid my full price.
So people are being more generous, you're finding at this time.
Yes, and they're valuing what they're receiving just as much as if it had been done in person. And that was a big aha moment for me. So I had, planned for the worst, that they're not going to like it as much.
But they're still getting value from you.
Oh, they're getting a ton of value. So, because I know that what I do, I can do it in any of these modalities, but did they know that?
Explain to our listeners just a little bit more in depth with what you do.
Okay. So I'm helping women primarily discover kind of a peace with their closet, a way to make their garments work so they don't have to think about it very much. They can actually live their life, do their job, spend more time with their family instead of wrestling with their closet. And so that could take anything from I do a closet edit with them, help them get rid of things that don't work anymore, or I pack them for a business trip, or I dress them for a presentation or an interview. So anything that you would hire someone to help you navigate. And we've been able to do it all with online shopping.
Incredible.
Yeah, so it's been great.
Excellent. Good to hear that. I also want to bring into the conversation Juan Carlos Morales. He's the principal creative director at Fabrika Studio, specializing in branding and design services. Some people may also call you a branding Sherpa. Thanks for joining, Juan Carlos. How are you adapting with your business right now?
Thanks, Jay. It's good to be here. I think I'm also going to use the word blessed or fortunate. We're a small team. We're a team of 3, and then we use, we've got this additional sort of external team of virtual folks, photographers and videographers and web developers that we use. And I would say about a year and a half ago, we really started transitioning to just kind of, moving everything to virtual, meetings, to virtual sort of, working together, checking in, using project management software, all that sort of thing, because most of our clients are actually not even in this state. So we were doing a lot of WebExes and Zooms and, all the kinds of things that became a big deal. We had been using those as tools for a while and shut down our physical office, and then just all of us just went virtual. So we were pretty ready for it, but it was a big change. We were doing a lot of big event work, branding events, designing booth structures and animations and doing posters and all kinds of graphics and anything that an organization would need. So we stopped doing those. I mean, just shows have been canceled left and right. So all of that, sort of branding work went away. The video shoots, we travel with videographers and do interviews and all that sort of thing. That whole dynamic, stopped. So, we're not traveling anymore, and we've been trying to help customers figure out, well, what do we do, to replace those kinds of events? How do we bring back, customer meetings and, customer touch points and, just to, create that experience that is no longer there. So we had to really change the way that we were helping customers do things and help them rethink what their experiences were and what their sort of definitions of success were, for coming out of meetings like that and shows and events and, the shoots and all of that sort of work that we were doing. So it became a pretty different ball field for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, so it's funny because, so you say that you were, in one sense, kind of prepared for this since you had already gone virtual. I'm curious how your business has been affected as far as, since people aren't doing large scale events, I mean, even small scale events at this point, right? They haven't quite come back yet. Certainly not to the degree that we were utilizing them. Fiscally, has that impacted your business, or was your business model kind of more working with the client regardless of what the finished product was? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I'd say a little bit of both. I mean, nobody really knows when the whole events business is coming back in any shape or form.
Right.
I mean, all of that stuff has just been canceled and gone virtual, and I think everybody's trying to figure out if they're netting the same sort of results. But in the beginning, February, March, where everybody was trying to figure out, is this really real? There was just, everybody had their hands on the pause button, and projects that we were working on that were 7-8 months out for shows and events in the summer and in the fall, just nobody knew if they were really going to happen. And then they started being canceled, and then everybody just sort of said, well, that's not what we're doing right now, so what are we going to be doing? And so we started helping folks, figure those kinds of things out and make the most of what is available to you, and trying to do things not more virtually, but maybe a little bit more personally over online, types of resources and things like that. So it wasn't a matter of doing more Zooms. It was a matter of doing better ones and, presenting content, a little bit differently, and helping, people sort of rethink what their services are and what's valuable to folks. And, in an age where you can, Google a business, small or large, really.
Yeah.
And get lots of results. What am I doing differently to have somebody pick me? to pick my organization. And so we've been helping, companies kind of tell that story and really talk about themselves in those kinds of terms.
Incredible. Are some people reimagining their entire mission statement from the ground up, or is it more they're just pivoting in the role, just like Lisa's gone more virtual? I mean, people are more pivoting in the vehicle, but their mission is still kind of the same.
I think the missions are still the same. It's kind of like you have this destination that is still the same. It's kind of how you're going to get there looks very, very differently. And there's no roadmap for this. And we can guess as much as we want. Yeah. There's no map, there's no handbook. And you just kind of have to look at your business honestly and say, well, what can I actually deliver right now? What kind of experience can I deliver? And is it relevant? Am I talking about the right things? And is it what customers are wanting right now? And I think that's part of the hard thing too, is what are customers, people on the other end of that sales funnel, of the pitch, of the ad, of whatever it is, what are they willing to buy nowadays?
He's like hitting everything.
Yeah.
Right on. Sorry.
Well, I know what. All right, so I'm going to bring in one more person to this conversation, because I know that everyone needs to buy food. So now we welcome Miss Liz Green, who is the Agriculture Associate Director for the Trustees. The Trustees is a historic and land preservation organization which owns 117 properties throughout the Commonwealth. And Liz manages, I think there are 5 vegetable farms, which includes Appleton Farms in Ipswich and Hamilton. Liz, thank you so much for being here, and wanted to say hi and see how the agriculture side of things is doing.
Hey, great to have. Thanks for having me on the show. Gosh, what a big question.
I know. I like to lob the softballs just right away.
I think when March came around and we realized we weren't going to be able to be open in our typical way of folks coming to the farms, so we run and manage community farms, which means we want people on the property. We're not doing wholesale. We're really inviting folks to the farms to taste and touch and experience themselves and really be a part of the farm. And what that looks like during COVID has been such a challenge to figure out. And when it became clear in mid-March that we couldn't be open for business as usual, we took all of our farm stores online, which is not a normal way of operating for us. Where I think one of your other guests used the word personal, and I feel like that's totally where we're headed with this. Always for a business model is hands-on, in-person. Food is such a gathering and a community point for so many people. And to be having folks on the farm in person is so important. And we just had to figure out a way to make that safe for people. And we realized we were an essential business and could stay open, and needed to put really some worker protections in place for our farmers and our staff. And we also realized that, especially in the early days of learning about COVID, the grocery store was not feeling like a particularly great place to be. I think folks are having a lot of anxiety. It felt pretty grim to do your shopping in that way. And we realized we were a safe place for folks. And we had this trusting relationship that we had built up with our customers over the years because we had been their community farm for a long time. So we took our farm stores online and developed like a no contact curbside pickup, which was such a change for us, and put our team in masks and gloves and the whole thing. And that's what it's been like in so many ways. It feels like a normal farm season. Like we're growing the food, we're planting, we're harvesting, all that stuff is proceeding like normal.
Yep.
The whole world around us is so shaken up. And I think, not just with COVID, but even like with the Black Lives Matter movement and thinking about equity in our food system, there's so many conversations we could have about what the food system is like and ways that it needs to improve and be more inclusive. But we've just found ourselves in a way still doing our core business, which is taking care of this land that's been entrusted to us and growing food for the community.
Yeah. So perfectly stated. Yeah. When did you actually transition did you transition at the end of March or early April to doing online orders and contactless pickup, or was that a more recent thing?
It was mid-March.
Wow.
So our core business is really like May through December, because we're obviously very tied to the growing season here in New England. But we do some winter vegetable production, and we're pulling food out of the root cellar. And we also we raise meat, sustainable and humane meat at our farms, and eggs. And then we partner with other local producers for things like cheeses or handmade pasta, or different foods like that are local and sustainable. And so we had been doing a pop-up winter market at some of our sites. And it became clear, I think it was like literally mid-March, like the 14th or the 15th, we were due for a Saturday pop-up. And it just didn't feel safe to have folks come into our tiny little store and cram in there and shop as normal. So we just thought, let's try going online. And we did 5 times our normal business that first Saturday. It was incredible, the community support and the folks that came out. And so we realized, okay, this is, I think, what we're doing from now on. So it's like a pre-order online and pick up at the farm system that we've been doing. And it's actually worked really well, and we're still mostly doing it. We're not open for regular bricks and mortar shopping.
Okay, yep.
We're still doing the kind of order ahead, pack your custom box, and then come over for your local food.
Why did you decide as an organization to continue doing it that way?
Yeah, it's been tricky. I think now that we're in phase 2 and 3 in the Commonwealth, we have more choice in how we are open.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of colleagues and friends struggle with just because you can doesn't mean you should. Or what's the comfort level for most people? And I think we definitely have customers who don't feel comfortable with even as open as we are, and others who wish that we were more open, and plenty in between. So I think we've really wrestled with the best and safest way to do it. And for my team, we have folks who are growing the food, and then folks who are staffing the pickups. And often it's the same team, and it's the farmers who are cycling through and doing the customer service. So for us, it just felt right to say, we're going to lean towards caution, and we're going to protect the staff and not be open in the typical way. We're doing more business than normal, so we're not seeing a revenue loss on the farms and with food. So it felt okay for now, and we weren't getting pushback from customers. And a lot of folks said, hey, thanks for being open at all. We appreciate these products, and we want to keep coming to you. We're also open now on our properties. You can come and hike on the trails, walk around the farm, just be outdoors, which is such a place, I think, for so many of us right now, where we can feel less anxious and more grounded, and it's just a really positive place to be. So we're open in that way, which is also part of our mission, right, is to connect people to nature and to the outdoors.
That's perfect. Yeah, I mean, it adds to all of our peace of mind if we can actually just get outside and go for a walk. It's still not the same thing as going to grab a drink down the bar, but that's okay. And that's the reality that we're in, right?
Oh, and we miss the bar, just like you guys.
Oh my goodness, we're having some good conversations here. You are, if you're just tuning in, you are in tune to Raising Your Inner Voice here on North Shore Radio with me, Jay Foss. We are speaking with Lisa Ann Santin, who is a wardrobe stylist, Juan Carlos Morales, who is a branding specialist, and Liz Green, who is from the Trustees, talking about farming. It seems like it's a lot of topics, but it's good. I want everyone to think about how sustainability, I feel like that's been an undercurrent. We'll come back to sustainability after this break.
If you have any issues, topics, or voices that you think would be great to be heard on this show, please reach out, jay.foss@me.com. If you want to add your voice to the conversation, record a voice memo and email it to me, or tune in live Sunday evenings at 7 p.m.
And thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're doing a COVID community check-in, basically, with a couple of people whom I know and have different perspectives about how they're doing. And I noticed from our conversation in the first segment, there was kind of an undertone of sustainability in which we were dancing around. I think Liz is actually the one who mentioned it. So Juan Carlos from Fabrika Studio, I'm going to turn it over to you. What does that mean for sustainability for you? And how do you foresee either your business or personally sustaining and carrying forward?
Yeah. So that's a loaded question, right?
That's what I do.
I mean, I'll tell you what I'm thinking right now. That could change tomorrow. But We figured out a few years back with the kind of work that we were doing a lot of different stuff, writing and, designing and, strategy and, in a nutshell, just anything and everything that, a company or brand could need, throughout a year. And so we realized pretty quick that we needed to make ourselves indispensable, to each and every one of our clients, no matter where we were. We needed to make sure that our clients felt like we were down the hall, even if we were across state lines, or even when we work with international customers, that type of thing. And I feel like that's one of the things that you have to, kind of do right now is figure out what can you do better than your competition. What is something that you could make work that makes you the better choice, that makes you the choice that is, I don't want to just choose you. I can't afford not to, to go with you. And helping, people tell those stories. So, when you talk about brand sustainability, we don't really know what the shelf life of this whole pandemic is, but we do know that we have to sort of be really responsive, not just reactive, but responsive. So if we have to rethink our businesses, if we have to rethink the way that we're doing things, if we have to rethink our offerings, then we need to repackage the way that we tell all of those stories. And, I kind of have this phrase that I like to use with the companies that we work with, and it's a pretty big variety of companies, which is nice. It's a handful, but, very different industries. But, I like to call it large-scale personalization. So the idea that, even if you're talking to a large amount of people, you're looking at those people and saying, who can I have the best conversations with? It's not about being loud. It's the whisper is just as effective, right? It's about having better dialogue with the right people. So, in doing that, making sure that we're using plain English, which, believe it or not, is a real big challenge for corporate America. Building trust, using plain English, being very honest about, the work that you do and what you can provide. And, as a brand, being very deliberate about how you can help customers nowadays, as opposed to just sort of the lip service. I mean, 3 months ago, we all heard we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Every organization sent out an email.
Exactly. And then, social mass hysteria happened, and every company not only wanted to be, on social media, right? Saying, hey, we care, but, one of the things that we would tell our customers and help them sort of craft that story is, don't just tell people that you care and that you agree. Tell them what you're doing, to make that change. Tell them about the groups that you're volunteering with. Tell them about the money that you're spending, the events that you're putting on, whether it's over Zoom or not. Tell them how you're supporting those causes and how you're actually trying to make change happen, as opposed to just being another Me Too organization. And the same thing happens with branding. We're innovative. Everybody says that. We've been around, we're trusted. Everybody says that. We've been around for 30 years. Who cares?
Yeah.
What are you doing differently? What are people, what are your customers wanting right now? And if that changes next week, well, then make sure you're addressing it next week, and then the week after that. So it's a massive dose of common sense, but it's also just being really in touch and really wanting to be relevant and, creating a dialogue. And a dialogue means I'm not just talking at you and then expecting for results to come in, but I'm waiting for you to respond, and then I'm going to throw the ball back to you. And over time, we're going to build this relationship.
But that takes time. I mean, right?
It all takes time.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst thing that you can do, as a brand, as any type of organization, whether it's nonprofit or whether it's, a large chain, a tech firm, or, a company that, sells, units, right? Manufacturers. The worst thing that you can do is think that you can put together a campaign or start tweeting or something like that, or, saying that you do something in a certain way, launching a product, throwing this really sexy tagline out there with it, and then none of what you do supports that, right?
Yeah.
So there's the overnight sensation thing, which that just doesn't even exist anymore. customers, people are looking for relationships and they're looking to build trust. Like what we were just talking about with the farms. Those kinds of things happen when, people trust, those different farming organizations, and they know that, I'm going to be taken care of, and they're going to figure out a way, to be able to provide me, the vegetables, the groceries, the whatever, that I need. But, those things don't happen just because you saw an ad or just because it's not a random thing. This is something that the brand has put into their playbook. This is something that's scripted. And because they build trust with their customers, they're going to expect it. And then when it happens, they're going to embrace it. So, sorry, that was a little long-winded.
No, that was perfect. I had like 20 thoughts I wanted to interject on. But being that the focus of the show is actually listening, I'm like, no, don't respond to that yet. No, don't respond to that yet. So I'm not going to respond and just turn things over to Liz again from the Trustees, who is kind of head of their agricultural, her official title is Agriculture Associate Director for the Trustees. Liz Green, what are your thoughts? What's some reaction to what Juan Carlos is saying?
Oh man, I really resonate with what you were saying, Juan Carlos. I feel like for us, if we are not giving folks an authentic experience with the food, it almost doesn't matter how sustainable we are in our growing practices, which, that is first and foremost our core mission. It's caring for the land and growing food in a way that's healthy, not just for eaters, but also for the environment. And we're seeking how to do that better every day and every year that we keep farming. But I think also if we're not being sustainable in the way we treat our staff and our workers and in our relationships with the customers and offering them an authentic experience to connect to food, it sort of doesn't matter how sustainable we are with the environmental piece. It needs to be holistic. And that's something we've really been wrestling with during COVID, I think, is how to give folks that friendly and welcoming experience and be inclusive when, you have a mask on and so do I, and we're handing you a bag instead of having you touch everything. And so I think that's definitely a journey that we're on as an organization and as the farm team within the Trustees, is how do we make sustainability holistic across, really the whole picture. And I think we're in process, I don't think we know the real answer to that. And I think we're trying to listen to customers and farm visitors and hear from them and work together on that.
And now I bring back into the conversation, thank you so much, Liz. I bring back into the conversation Lisa Santin, who's a wardrobe curator and stylist. What's your reaction to this whole sustainability mentality, either from the business side or broader for you?
Well, first of all, I'm the baby company among these giants. So I'm 3 years in, and the whole core of my business is to help women reuse and recycle everything that they've already bought that they've never worn. And I have a process and a way to do that, which I'm not going to get into now because you don't want to hear about that. But so sustainability is at the core of everything I do. Now, how do you keep educating people about that when you can't go to workshops? You can't hold workshops. I can't do group dynamic experiences because most women out there don't have a person to coach them in this area. They think it's a luxury. I actually help people save time and money, but it takes a lot of relationship building and education to get them there to that point where they get it and actually hire me. So that's been very interesting to navigate the way I've normally done things. It doesn't exist anymore. Those paths to finding the people and having the conversations aren't there. And I'm working with someone right now on the lines of branding, storytelling, refocusing how I bring this message to a marketplace where when I can't meet with you, we can't do all those high touch things. My service is a white glove service, but it's very affordable, but it's very, very personal. And so when you can't make those personal points, how am I going to pivot? And I'm in a 3-month process right now of redefining that. And I'm working with a professional to do it so that I will sustain. This business of mine will continue. I just have to meet people now in virtual places and spaces. That's new for me, unlike Juan Carlos, who is very, you were already there. I had to get up to speed pretty quick. So
And what you're saying, I mean, one, you're searching out how to do that. And that's super important, right? But, when I hear what you're saying, I hear you're trying to figure out a way to remain present, in that relationship with your customers.
Yes.
And I think that's what a lot of businesses are struggling with nowadays because, let's face it, whether you're small or large, the dynamic changes, but people buy the people behind the business. What makes that business unique, the technology that it brings, the ideas, the creativity, right? That is all because of the people. So if those people are no longer present, whether you're fashioning a wardrobe for an executive or, whoever it is, or you're figuring out how to deliver more sustainable, agriculture, the people behind it, keeping that human element in there, I think is absolutely critical.
Yeah.
Liz, anything else you wanted to add on that?
No, I'm really resonating with what everyone's saying. And I think in COVID, it's easy to lose sight of that. And I think for us, it's easy to get focused on the field work and the business. And I think really we have to remind ourselves to keep people at the center, whether that's our own farm crew and their health and sustainability and connecting with the customer and having that authentic relationship. And I think if we can keep that at the center, it's such a positive experience, even when it's less connected than in normal time.
And so right now we're talking about this mainly in the business context, but I think for the average listener, this applies just as well, because as people, we're all trying to figure out, how do I get the personal aspect of my life that I've been missing out on for the last 4 months plus, right?
Yeah.
How do I sustain that so that way I don't go nuts or start yelling at my kids because it's the slightest thing that sets me off? Like, how am I properly taking care of myself so that I can actually be there and do what I need to do in my life?
Yeah, and for us, I think we've been acknowledging on our team with the farmers that there is a grief to that and that there's a loss there, that we don't have this experience that we normally have every summer with our customers and with our own teams. And that I think a lot of folks are feeling that in different aspects of their life, whether it's working from home or kids can't be in school or caring for older. There's such a range of ways that we're all struggling to find our way right now. And for my team, it's been helpful to kind of take a minute and say, this is a grief and a loss. And it's not our normal way of doing business. And how do we find a new way through before we just immediately leap to solutions?
Are you doing that just with your employees team? Or are you actually addressing that with your customers as well?
Yeah, good question. It's been interesting. So at all of our farms, we do a weekly newsletter to tell folks some notes from the field, what's growing, what's coming up, and then what they should expect in their weekly share. And those have been a little more personal this year, honestly. And I think we've shared more of the hard work behind the scenes than we usually do, and have said to people, hey, this is a really difficult year. But also the fact that we have customers who commit to us for the whole season, it is a unique business relationship, and that there's a high level of commitment from the customer and from us to them. And so we've just been able to also share appreciation to them for sticking with us in these crazy times. And I think because of that honesty, we've really had a great response from our members. But that is different. Normally with branding and marketing, you want to put a good face on, right? And champion your products and cheerlead the team. And this year it's been a little more honest and like, hey, we're struggling too. And I think that's meant a lot, actually, to our team and to our customers. It's been really positively received.
Yeah, because it shows that you're people.
Yeah,
right. Exactly.
And that's huge. There's been that big movement for years now of buying local and supporting smaller businesses and local businesses. But if those businesses aren't providing you what you are looking for in the way that you need it, if it's not worth paying for, then it's really it's charitable. It's charity versus good business. And I think those are two very, very different things. And I like what you said, Liz, about making sure that the people, your team, are actually being they're being given credit or extra time, or they're being given the time to grieve what was, the job the way that it was before, whatever shape that sort of takes. I think that's something that's really I know it's hard for us. We're a small team, but I find that we're working a lot harder and spending a lot more time, longer Zooms later into the night, all that sort of thing. And you're working a lot harder to validate what you were doing before, maybe very well. You're doing a lot more to show people that, you're still doing it in a very earnest and honest and good way. And it's almost kind of a crazy thing when you think about it, because it's kind of like, well, I've been running my business for a while, am I trying out here? Is that what it is? But, I think it keeps us all honest.
To prove ourselves yet again in this new world. It's so interesting what you're saying. Yeah.
But the honesty thing that Liz captured, it's in business and in our lives right now. I think we have a huge opportunity. I serve on a nonprofit on the North Shore, and I remember saying to them, we were just getting ready to roll out the grants. This was like a year-long process, 26 women busting it to get to these finals. And I said, we have to stop. We've got to roll it back. We've got to figure out where that money should go that really makes a difference right now in this COVID moment. I mean, I didn't just have this idea. Many women had. We had to talk about it. We had to be honest with ourselves about all that work and letting it go and going after the points in the community that needed the help the most and redirecting the funds, and then being honest and transparent, because we're fiduciary for our donors. So, okay, now the donors think that one process that's been happening for 20 years is going to happen, and it's not going to happen. And how are we going to communicate that to them with honesty, integrity, but to be on the right side of history was the term I used.
Right.
And that's all you can do. I feel like we can share how thoughtful we're trying to be about all these decisions, small and large. And at that point, I think that's our best we can offer. And I think folks will respond to that in the marketplace, in the community, or they won't. And that's a hard thing. It's been hard for me to let go of, because, we want everybody to love our food and we want everybody to love the farms. And sometimes that's all you can do.
Yeah.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Raising Your Inner Voice with me, Jay Foss, and we have a great group of people gathered here, and we're all kind of talking about sustainability and how we're doing. I'm calling this episode the Community Check-In, because I think that we all need to check in with ourselves and actually acknowledge that and kind of address that first before we can go on to the school of life and actually continue learning the lessons that we're learning. And coming back from the break, we're going to revisit, Juan Carlos had mentioned about being better and bettering things. I want to readdress that in the sense, as well as talking about how we're learning, maybe to fly.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you want to join in the conversation live, tune in Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern, northshore1049.com, and click Listen Live. If you want to gather your thoughts first, record a voice memo and email it to jay.foss@me.com, because I would love to have your voice in this conversation. What does living a better life mean? And what's your process in figuring that out? If you think someone else might need a conversation like this one, then let them know to get involved.
And as you hear that phone number, that is the call for you, the listener, to add to the conversation if you feel so led to do so. 1-800-370-1049 is the number to call in. But we're going to check back with the farm first. We are talking with Liz Green, who is the Agriculture Associate Director for the Trustees. And Liz, what do you think about this whole concept of being better? What are you striving towards? What is the lesson from COVID that you're learning?
Man, another easy question.
You're welcome.
I mean, I was just listening to that local weather report and thinking, like, farmers at the end of July are really just trying to get through the day.
Yeah.
With these temperatures. No, I think, a great thing about being in agriculture is we're in it for the long haul. And I think, like, jokes aside, weather, pest diseases, like, there's so many challenges in a growing season in New England. And I think the extra challenges of COVID this year are exacerbating all those things. And I think for us, what it means to be better is keeping that long haul in view and really thinking about, like, what are the investments we're making this season in sustainability and in training our crew and in maybe equipment and infrastructure or tools in it, things that will take the farm forward and help us continue to improve like our game, basically. Like how are we being more sustainable? How are we growing better and better quality? And I think with COVID, in a way, what's been most fascinating to me is there's such a market for local food. And I think we've known that for a long time. And it's maybe even been a fad in sort of the food and nutrition movement. And I feel like we were here before COVID. We're going to be here after. Like, we're just here doing our thing. And we want to feed people. And that's our main impetus, is like, take care of this beautiful piece of land and feed the community. And I think if that's all that folks come away with during COVID, is that we're here and we're a steady presence and we're continuing to invest and we want to be here for the long haul, that would be amazing, But I'm not going to say, like, I think the lessons of COVID are going to continue to shift.
Yeah.
Honestly,
absolutely.
My sense this spring was this would be, when we were told it'll be a couple of months, we'll be back to a new normal. And it seems clear to me this is going to be with us for a little while.
Right.
What does that mean? Our folks are pretty weary of wearing masks and keeping social distance at work and having this new odd way of interacting with customers. And what does that look like if we have 6 more months of that? I don't know. And I guess I want to try to keep being open and listening and being part of the conversation of what it means to be better, because I don't know the full answer to that.
Do you have conversations with other farms? Is it a competition mentality, or is it something where you're actually kind of all in it together and working, even though you are, I guess, in a sense, competitors, you're all striving towards the same goal?
No, that's such a great question. I always say that I think of our competition as food coming from California and Mexico. And like, if we're trying to pull business from anybody, it's just from the mainstream grocery store. I think so few people are plugged into the local food movement that the other community farms and family farms, whether for-profit or nonprofit, there is a really wonderful community of support between local farmers. We share equipment. We call each other up when we have a problem. What's this pest? What's this disease? Do you have a crew member I can borrow? Like, there's an incredible, generous spirit on the North Shore and the whole Eastern Mass, Boston area farm scene. It's really incredible. So I think, it's interesting, I've seen those folks less during COVID than normal. Like, one thing we do is every 2 weeks there's a workshop, farm apprentices and folks who are new in their farming career, and a different farm will host and kind of demonstrate their systems or their equipment or maybe their irrigation or their crop plan, and it's sort of a learning opportunity. And we haven't had those this year because of the pandemic. And so I've actually physically seen those colleagues a lot less. Certainly the email and the text message traffic is as high volume, if not more than ever, because we're all just trying to hang on and get through this. And it is honestly an amazing community of folks. It's one of the highest joys for me of being in the farm and food world, is that local farm community.
Do you Zoom a lot with the plants that you're gardening?
Yeah. Well, what's nice for me is I can get out in the field once in a while. So I was a farmer for a long time. Now I'm an office-based person and kind of a coach, cheerleader, mentor for our farmers.
How's that transition been for you?
I know. Mega transition, honestly. And I feel like I should give Lisa a shout about wardrobe, since we're talking about it here. But yeah,
I can hook you up after the show
sometimes. And I think, but definitely at the Zoom limit with all the rest of you. A lot of meetings with colleagues about budget over the computer, and I'm right there with you with the Zoom fatigue.
Yeah. Lisa, how about you? Bring it in, thinking about what does it mean to be better for you?
Well, first of all, Liz, I have some herbalists that are clients, so call me later.
Oh, I'm ready.
Farm fresh. Well, I always strive to be better. This sounds so Pollyanna. Jay knows me very well. If you listen to my podcast, The Wardrobe Muse, I'm always bringing a guest on that is a local female. I have nothing against men, but I'm a female-based company, so I tend to collaborate and partner with more women. And so I'm always trying to lift women up, build them up. The more that we all succeed, the more that one of us succeeds, the more we all succeed. And so I don't look at anyone as competition. My very first Wardrobe Muse podcast, I had a stylist on with me who is really, really locked and loaded in the sustainable space. I mean, I think I am, but she could teach me a thing or two. And we had a great first session, but I had a lot of feedback from people. Why would you bring a stylist on your show? She's your competition. But I don't see people as competition. The more stylists there are out there and the more regular women know that fashion and style can be for them, the more we all are getting better business, getting more business, helping more women.
But let me push back to you for a second on that.
Okay.
Like, so how is that, how can that be true? That if someone is truly doing better things, how are you better as a result for that? If there's another local person who's doing a similar thing, how is them getting more business actually helping you?
Because I think a lot of women, regular women, do not think they deserve this service. They think it's for people in Hollywood. They think it's for people that have a lot of money. So I want to democratize, is that the word I'm looking for? Fashion and style. I want every woman to feel good, whatever her style is. And so I'm like, if you've watched Queer Eye, I'm like Tan. I'm just really like, who are you? Let me help you be the best you. I don't dress people like me. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
I have a certain style that works for me, for my body, for my lifestyle. I don't try to make all the ladies I work with look like me. I'm trying to bring the best thing out in them. Yeah.
Perfect. Juan Carlos, it's your turn.
So I think from a pragmatic business standpoint, there are less dollars. There will be less consumer corporate dollars. And there's plenty of choice, if not more. You know, there are people who have been let go from jobs who are very good at what they did.
Right.
You know, the budgets weren't there, the business wasn't there, contracts were canceled, that sort of thing. And, you know, there are people out there that are hungry and very capable. So I think that there's that whole, you know, sort of dynamic. You know, there's plenty of choice, right? And it's not like what it was months back. You know, myself, I like to think that we hold ourselves to a certain standard and do work in a certain way. And, you know, as much as we're glad to see a new customer, you know, walk in the door, that sort of thing, you know, there's only a finite amount of time. So the customers that you spend time with, it's like the people that you socialize with, you really, really have to like. You have to like what they do. You have to be able to sell, you know, what they do, what they offer, you know, what their special sauce is, all that sort of thing. So there's a lot that goes into that, and that requires a very sort of personal relationship that builds over time, right? So I feel like being better at what you do makes you a better choice, makes you I have to go with this company or that person or, you know, that team, you know, behind that brand, that sort of thing. But if you're not feeling pretty amazing about the work that you're doing, then at least in my industry, it shows. And I think it shows, you know, everybody here. You
across
know,
the board.
Yeah, across the board it shows. But, you know, I think that there's also, I think that with the amount of choice that, you know, is available now, with you know, the lack of disposable income, with the amount of time that we have on the internet, you know, because we're on Zoom meetings or because, you know, we might not be working the full schedule that we were before. There's just a whole lot more, you know, to distract us. Right?
Yeah.
There's just a ton of information and choice and stuff out there and noise. So, cliche as it sounds, if we don't rise above that noise as individual business owners and companies, then we're just going to be lost. We're going to be another farm or another stylist or another designer or something like that. And, you know, it's funny, I teach at Endicott College, I teach graphic design. And, you know, so I tell students that, you know, right now out there in the world, there are thousands of people training to do what you do.
Yeah.
And they're doing amazing work right now. Not even after graduation or 10 years from now.
You're right. Right, you know, now.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you want to be the best person that you can be. And that means, and that means, you know, when you look at a project, if there are 4 angles, looking at all 6, right? And just looking inside, outside, everywhere. And just trying to bring something different to it that is right for them. So what it all boils down to is like not cookie cuttering. I don't know what the verb form of that is, right? But not cookie cuttering anything.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't fly nowadays. And it's certainly not going to fly in January if things progress.
Right.
And we've been on a year of no events and no this and no
Or
that.
even if things don't progress and people are just tapped out with it.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't take shortcuts right now.
Oh, this conversation. I could
Sorry,
go on
Jay.
like another 5 hours. Sadly, it has come to an end. I want to thank Liz Green from the Trustees for joining me. I want to thank Lisa Ann Santin from Last Wardrobe, who's a stylist, for joining me. I want to thank Juan Carlos Morales from Fabrika Studios for joining me. And this has been such a good conversation. Listener, I hope that you have gained something, because I certainly have. And I'm going to continue this conversation week in and week out, Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. right here on North Shore 104.9. Until we chat again, be kind and gentle with yourself and share that kindness with others. I'm going to play you a little song right here that just makes me feel good, because regardless of where you're at, if you're alive, you can get better.